So it's not necessary to meditate to realize the truth about who we are. So then you may say, well, then why are we meditating? Right? Well, you're meditating to slow down the process of being something you're not. You're slowing it down, right? Because if you practice paying attention to the breath, which is happening in the moment, the only real time, which is happening in the moment, if you're paying attention to the breath, which is happening in the moment, and you're moving your attention away from the thought activity, you're slowing down the ability of the personality to generate itself, because it's using thinking to generate itself. So you're slowing it down, you're not stopping it, and it'll pop back, it'll keep popping back into the thought process. But the fact that you're slowing it down opens up the possibility a little bit that you might notice that which has been a blind spot. A blind spot meaning that the truth of who we are, the truth of who we are that's free, that doesn't suffer, that is in peace, that is satisfied, the truth of who we are can't be seen because it's, so we could say it's a blind spot. You can't be seen because it's where you're looking from. So it can never be seen. So it would be a blind spot in terms of, if you talk about it in terms of what you're seeing, it's a blind spot. You can't see it, right? You can't see it because it's what's looking. So that's one aspect of it, that it's a blind spot. Can't be thought of, right? It's non-conceptual, can't be thought, so you can't think who you are, you can't see who you are. So can you see how this is problematic? Because given that the personality's way of functioning is to think and to look, seeing is believing to the personality, right? And so that's the entity that has been created in conditioning that continues to create a curtain, that continues to create a block from being aware of awareness itself. And so that's one of the reasons why the way that we deal with it is that we point to it, right? But what we're pointing to and what we're talking about can't be spoken of and can't be seen. And yet we're pointing to it, right? The idea is that at some point that there may be some kind of break that's sufficient enough for you to just get it, because you are it. You can't see it, you can't think it, but you're being it all the time. You can't know it. You can't know it. It's unknowable, right? Because in order to know something, it has to not be you, right? Has to not be you. You can't know this because it is you, right? On the other hand, you could say that, in a sense, you know it more than you know anything. Because everything else you know as a concept, something you can think about, something you can see. Everything else that you know that way. This knowledge is immediate. It's before you can think about it. It's before you can attempt to see it. It's so immediate that that it's being missed all the time. It's being missed all the time. Not only is it being missed all the time, but we're involved in engaging with other thinkers, right? And we're involved in engaging with that which we can see, right? And so that, because of that, it keeps the identity going, right? Your identity right now, the identity that you consider yourself to be, right, is pretty, it seems to be pretty stable, right? It seems to be pretty stable, even though it's not stable at all because it's constantly changing. So that's not stability. And yet it seems to be stable because it seems to be there all the time, doesn't it? you seem to be who you think you are all the time, right? Well, that's because you're thinking all the time, and when you're thinking, one of the thoughts you're thinking is that you're thinking. One of the thoughts that you're thinking is that you're thinking. So when you're thinking, you're creating the thinker of those thoughts all the time. So thinking is generating the idea that you have about who you are, right? So you may say, okay, so what's the point of all this? Well, the point of all this is that that process results in suffering. That process results in dissatisfaction. It results in agitation. It results in instability. It results in your behavior being inappropriate. Inappropriate in the sense that as long as you're behaving as something that you're not, believing that what you are, that you think you are, is threatened, right? Believing that what you think you are needs something that it doesn't have, believing that what you think you are is not happy, right? So it's seeking satisfaction, it's seeking happiness, it's seeking consistency, it's seeking comfort, right? It's seeking agreement, it's seeking relationship, right? And yet the irony of the whole thing is that everything that seems to be missing is never missing. Everything that seems to be missing is always available. But the availability of it is the availability that's immediately the case for the reality of what we are. So that if you experience, or even if you have more even if there's more breaks in the generation of the identity, even if there's more breaks in that, you're happier. You feel more content, more happy, more relaxed, even if there's breaks in that. That's why people get addicted to running, right? Because if you run and you're focused on the running activity, right, and you get into the zone, right, what's that mean? It means that you have no attention on yourself anymore, right? So the phenomena of that when you're not there is when you're there happens. And so runners get addicted to being in the zone. They get addicted to the experience of being absent. That's an interesting thing when you consider it, right? You get addicted to the experience of being absent. Right? I think that's also one of the ways that psychedelics work, is that they remove your ability to experience yourself as an identity, temporarily remove your ability to experience yourself as an identity. So it's like now, here I am, in the world, without any agenda, in the world without any likes and dislikes, in the world without any concern, without any fear. Here I am in the world like that. And when you're in the world like that, it's an exciting adventure. It's an exciting. You don't know what's going to happen next. You don't even know how you're going to happen next. You don't even know how you're going to happen next. Because when you're in the identity of the personality, you think you're in control and you think you're generating your behavior, right? But when you're not in the thinking activity, if you can experience your behavior not in the thinking activity, you don't know what you're going to do. You don't know what you're going to do. That's why when people ask me hypothetical questions, I always answer the same. I say, well, we'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. We like to think that we can predict our behavior, don't we? Yeah. But if you pay attention to your behavior, you'll notice how unpredictable you are, right? And that's not a problem when you are experiencing. See, that's not a problem when it's being experienced from just the awareness of it rather than having any stake in it. Just the awareness of it, because when you're looking at it from an awareness standpoint, it's being seen as what's happening. You, when you're looking at it, like I was talking earlier about what would it be like to experience without thinking. Well, one of the ways it would be is that you would be an object of your own awareness. You, who you think you are, would stop being here looking out. Who you think you are would now be out here too, See, everything would be in front of you now. There would be nothing. There would be no. See, that's the thing with the Heart Sutra. One of the reasons they chant the Heart Sutra is to try and get the message that it is into the system, right? In the very beginning of the Heart Sutra, it says transcendental wisdom. What is transcendental wisdom? Upon the recognition that there is no self, transcendental wisdom is experienced. Transcendental wisdom experience. What is transcendental wisdom? Transcendental wisdom, if you go further into the Heart Sutra, it says that everything now is just coming and going, you know. No body, no absence of body. No thoughts, no disappearance of thoughts. Everything is, you see everything as just an impermanent reality that just keeps changing and changing and changing, including your own mind, including your own body, including your own behavior, right? This is the witness. This is witnessing. This is witnessing. Witnessing means that you're not involved. The awareness is not involved. The awareness is just witnessing. And because of the fact that it's just witnessing, it has no stake in what's happening. Now, this is interesting because it gives you a certain kind of power. You know, I talked here about the verses for training the mind chant, the verses for training the mind chant. Very challenging chant, very challenging verses if you read those verses, right? Because it's basically telling you that anywhere that you're in conflict in your life with another human being, right? Give them the victory. Have them be the one that's right, right? Be the one that's the lowest in the situation. Well, if you're being the identity, you can't do that. Your mind won't let you do that. It will start talking to you and say, oh no, if you do that, look what that will mean. Look how that will make you look. And after all, you are really right, you know? Right? This is the way your mind is going to deal with that, right? But if you're experiencing not being the identity, if you're actually being the witness, which means you're not involved, well, then you're free to take any position. It doesn't matter, right? And what you discover is by apologizing, if anybody sees anything wrong with you and you take ownership of it, you give them the victory. You apologize, right? You just apologize because it doesn't matter, right? Because there's no you to be right. There's no you to resist. There's no you to be in conflict. So you just apologize because it doesn't matter, right? And then you experience the magic and the power that comes with that, because as soon as you do that, you take the conflict away from the person. Try it. It's very hard to do because your mind will, especially if it's an important situation, right? Especially if it's with people that you're close to, your spouse or your children or your parents, right? They're the people who you'll fight to the death about being right? But the reality of it is, if you just forced yourself to do it, no matter how crazy your mind got, you just forced yourself to do it, no matter anybody that finds fault with you, you just apologize and say, you know, you're right, I'm absolutely sorry, you know, what can I do? Is there anything I can do to make this okay, right? That takes this conflict away. Right? If you do it, what you'll see is after you do that, if you really do it, right? After you do that, the thing that happens next is there'll be a space there to create something, right? So if you do, and I've done this, you know, I've been practicing doing this, and it works. It works. You can be in, what's that? What?
You admit you're wrong.
Of course. Absolutely. But you see, here's the deal. The me that I'm admitting is wrong, I know I'm not that me. So I'm not losing anything, you see? So all I'm doing is I'm writing the script for my character. I'm writing the script for my character. And the script that I'm writing for my character is designed to open up the space for relationship.
But isn't that, when you say then what can I do to change, to make up, isn't that the personality jumping in and want to find out how can I make myself better?
No, that's me using the personality to give the person whatever they think they need or want from me to be able to have this thing be over.
Okay. I understand the apology thing.
Yeah.
But when you interjected that thing about what can I do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me. When I say it doesn't matter to me, it doesn't matter to who I really am, you know. It doesn't matter who I really am, because who I really am is interested only in one thing, and that's love. And love can't happen if there's conflict, right? Yeah. So what I'm up to is whenever there's conflict, I want to disappear the conflict. How do you disappear something? Create it. If you recreate it the way it is without trying to change it, it'll disappear. So if you tell me if you tell me that I've done something to upset you, or I've done something to disappoint you, or you're angry at me because I behaved in a certain way, the practice of training my mind is to say, "You're absolutely right, and I'm sorry. What can we do? What can I do here?" If you really do it, you'll see that what comes after that, right, is that the person will say, "Okay, well, let's go to lunch." Okay, let's go to lunch. Or okay, what do we do next?
Or they get a little pissed, yeah.
Then you apologize for that. You say, "Well, oh, you're still angry? What are you angry about?" And they tell you, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." See, you can't cheat Mother Nature. You know what I mean? You really have to let it go. This isn't a word game. This is not semantics. You really do have to let it go. You really do have to be sorry. Because the one that's being sorry doesn't exist. It's a script. It's a script. So why not play with the script to see if you can make the way the thing is going go the way you want it to go? And if the way you want it to go is you want to experience love, you want to experience relationship, you want to experience the space to be related and enjoy the relationship, right? Then make it your job to take anything out of that space that's in the way. And you're free to do that when you're being who you really are, because who you really are has no investment in what's happening at all. It's just witnessing.
It has no game in it.
No. No gain and no loss.
No game in it. You have no game in it.
Yeah, there's no game and there's no gain and there's no loss. The reality of who we are cannot gain anything or lose anything. Can't. Impossible to gain anything or lose anything. So if that's the case, why make a fuss? I'm talking about something beyond the personality, a way of dealing, because beyond the personality is that there's nothing to gain and nothing to lose. You can't win the conflict, and you can't lose the conflict because you're not involved in the conflict, you're just witnessing. See, the reason all your minds are going off, right, is because the mind says, "Oh no," because the first time I read those verses of training the mind, I told you that my mind, when I read that part, "Give the other person the victory," my mind said, "Absolutely not. I'm not doing that. That's not happening here," right? But then I realized, wait a minute, this is called training the mind, right? So my mind rejects it, right? But that's the mind I'm training, right? So let me just see what would happen if I actually made myself do this to just see what would happen. Right? And when you do that, you start discovering it works. But even if somebody physically hurts you, you don't have to take it personally, because it isn't personal. They think they're who they believe they are, and they think you believe who you are, and that's where the conflict is. But if you take one of the people away from that, how can there be conflict? Because who you are has no stake in what's happening. Has no stake. That's why if you do that exercise where you just try and imagine what it's like without thinking, right? If you can just get a sense of what it's like without there being any thinking, there's no position. You have no position. You have nothing to lose and nothing to gain. It's just what's happening is what's happening. That's all there is. There is no, and you're not doing anything either. That's why one of the things that starts to become apparent, if you can get a good sense of what it's like, what the experience of not thinking is, you start to actually see how everything is predetermined, because it's just happening. It's happening based on a cause and effect reality that's universally going on. And that's determining the words that come out of your mouth, it's determining your behavior, right? And when you are experiencing your true nature, which is that you're just witnessing this, you're not involved in it. You're not involved. That's what I mentioned that on Sunday. In the teaching they call it Layla. And you ever hear not just Derek and the Dominoes, but that's where he got the word. Layla it means the play of consciousness. The consciousness is just happening. And you're part of that consciousness that's just happened. You're not separate from it. You're part of it. And you can enjoy the experience of it, right, by not allowing the thought process to be something you identify with. It will still go on. You can't stop it, right? But you can practice not identifying with it and realizing that you're not thinking these thoughts. They're just happening like the weather. That's what's happening. Your behavior is just happening like the weather. And you think you're doing it. You think you're making it happen, but that's not the way it works. So now that you're all thoroughly confused and upset,
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Very interesting.
well, that's why in these practices, you know, if you can't be what you already are, but you can practice not being what you're not. And that's training the mind. Training the mind means, you know, not allowing the mind to be something you think that you are, that you're identified with, that you're thinking these thoughts. They're coming from your conditioning. Coming from your conditioning. If you were raised in a family where you were abused and you were treated like you were a non-entity and you were told that you were worthless, right? Guess what? That's what's going to play up there. That's what's going to play up there. And if you want to live the life that allows you to live, good luck. You're going to suffer. You're just going to keep suffering. But if you understand the truth, when that plays, it means nothing to you. It means nothing to you. It's just a recording that got recorded from past experiences when you were a kid, when you didn't have a control over anything, right? And it made impressions in your mind. They're called vasanas, or they're called, the neural, they're just impressions in the brain and in the mind, and they're playing. And when you identify with them, you're living in the past. You're reliving your childhood all day long, right? What's that?
Like playing a record.
That's right. And every time something, and when that's playing and you're not identified with it, right? It weakens the recording because nobody's listening. Weakens the recording until eventually the recording just dies out. It's just die. If you don't feed the dog will die. If you don't give it attention, the thoughts will die, right? And if you practice that consistently, less and less of that comes up until it gets quieter and quieter, right? And you start becoming saintly. You start becoming literally a free consciousness, a free consciousness. That's why when I was doing that stuff on Sunday, I said, do you get a sense of the freedom of it? The freedom of it. If you can imagine what it would be like to experience the experience with no thought, there's freedom. There's freedom there. Anything can happen now. There's no more program. There's no more program. Anything can happen. You'll surprise yourself. You'll start behaving in ways that are not consistent with your conditioning. And those ways that you'll behave are ways that are consistent with your true nature. You'll be more lovable. You'll be kinder. You'll be more interested in other people than you are with yourself. That's the nature of your true nature. Because your true nature, there is no self over here. So the only thing that's left for you to do is look to see, how can I be for you? What could I do for you? Right? Because if there's no self here, but there's a self over there, right? And those people are suffering, right? Then all you want to do is be kind. That's all they want. That's all people want. If you walk around, if you go in the Wawa and you walk around and you look at people, right? When you make eye contact, all they want is kindness. They're afraid. Everybody's afraid. All they want is kindness. Kind words is all they want, right? Because they're suffering. They're suffering. They're suffering from the weight and the confusion, right? And the delusion of experiencing life as a human being in the world as people consider it to be. So, the thing to get out of all this is the possibility is real, it's available at all times, and all you have to do is pay attention.